It's the inaugural record release from Discograffiti. Metal Machine Muzak is a slanted tribute to Lou Reed's divisive 1975 double LP Metal Machine Music. Lester Bangs called it the greatest album ever made, but no matter how it hits you, it's always been the ultimate music freak secret handshake. My ambient reimagining features 4 16-minute 1-second tracks, just like the original, and each one was created by a top-shelf indie rock visionary. Lou Barlow from Dinosaur Jr. and Sebadoh, Corey Hansen from Wand, W. Cullen Hart from the Olivia Tremor Control, and Mark Robinson from Unrest. That's right, not a slouch in the bunch, unlike 99% of the compilations you've ever begrudgingly purchased for the one and only band on it you just had to hear. Metal Machine Muzak will not be available on streaming. The digital version is finally available for purchase, and the vinyl will be shipped this summer. Pre-orders for the LPs are available now, but they're going fast. They're being produced in a very limited edition run of 300 numbered 180-gram metallic silver double LP gatefold copies, only 100 of which can be ordered online. These copies will be numbered from 1 to 100, and they're first come, first served. To order either the digital or the vinyl, just head over to patreon.com/discograffiti/shop. Again, that's patreon.com/discograffiti/shop. Don't miss out on Metal Machine Muzak, the ambient experience designed to make Brian Eno run screaming. Were you resigned at this point to a fate of hitlessness and you didn't care? Or what was the story? Tell me.
You know what? I'm going to sound like a snob here. I never felt like our material was not hit material. I thought a lot of it was hit material. And I just felt like people didn't appreciate it.
Welcome to Discograffiti, the Music Obsessives podcast that gives freaks like you and me the chance to connect with a brotherhood obsessed with rating the entire discography of every single artist and band that ever mattered. I'm your host, Dave Gebrow, and with 3 to 4 episodes each week, you're going to gain a comprehensive knowledge of an act's history and output in the time it takes to listen to one album. Each new guest swings a hard left into an area you either had no idea you needed to know about or know all about and can't believe you're not alone out there. I am thrilled to announce that I am no longer aligned with the podcast network Osiris Media. I am a free man. And in this episode, we'll be turning our spray cans on the free design. Psst. Along with our special guests, Sandy, Ellen, and Bruce Dedrick, who will be taking us by the hand and giving us a guided tour of their years as objectively the greatest sunshine pop group of all time. We'll also be rating all their releases, every last LP, promo effort, and sidelined obscurity you can think of, although some of the more obscure ones will only be included in the Patreon edits of this series. This, then, is part 2, culled from a 5.5-hour interview with all 3 siblings, the only one of its kind in existence. And here's just a choice sampling of what's bandied about in this podcast. The impact of Ellen's entrance into the group, which made them a quartet. Whether or not any of them actually cared about the lack of hits they seemed unfairly doomed to experience by this point. And a deep dive exploration of LPs number 2 and 3, You Could Be Born Again and Heaven Earth. Before we kick things off, just a quick word from Sandy.
Hey lads and ladies, I'm Sandy Dedrick, lead singer of The Free Design. If you think kites are fun, wait till you hear the extended director's cuts of the Free Design episodes Bruce, Ellen, and I did with Discograffiti. If you're as much of a completist as I'm guessing you are, you probably won't want to settle for the truncated versions of these interviews, seeing as this has been the most comprehensive interview the Dedrick clan has ever given. The Lieutenant tiers got the extended cut, and the Major tiers got the super extended ultimate cut. Support Dave Gebrow because the guy works his butt off on this. Go ahead and treat yourself to a Patreon subscription at patreon.com/discograffiti.
If you're a Free Design superfan like me, you'll want to turn this free version off right now and opt for the ultimate major cut of this episode on our Patreon page, which features 30 additional minutes of essential material, including overviews of entire releases that we had to cut for time. It's literally twice as long as this free version, and you can find it in our Patreon shop for mere pennies at patreon.com/discograffiti/shop. Or just subscribe for access to the complete versions of all our shows. Longer cuts are on the Lieutenant tier, and our longest ultimate cuts, they're on the Major tier. Even if you're on the fence, just head over there because it's finally free to become a basic member. Okay, first things first, you need to know just how seriously I take this craziness. Discograffiti is a music obsessive's dream come true. The guest and I explore an artist or band's entire discography in a futile but valiant attempt to reach a higher truth, which often is cleverly disguised as a nerdy compendium of star ratings and lists. The show is heavily researched, and the music is always reassessed with fresh ears. We don't just cover albums. We do a searingly honest deep dive analysis of all EPs, singles, comp tracks, relevant solo work, and sometimes even bootlegs and live stuff. Every release is slapped with an objectively accurate star rating between 0 and 5, which allows us all, the real reason we do this, the Tootsie Pop reward at the center of the rock and roll lolly, to come face to face with the true shape of an artist's overall arc. Coming up, we've got Michael Imperioli rating his favorite band, The Smiths, an interview with Tom Bailey from the Thompson Twins, Robert Schneider rating the Strawberry Alarm Clock, and a massive, many-guested launch into the Beach Boys' entire catalog. So don't miss out. Open up your listening app right now and subscribe. And away we go then! You guys are a band now, and you're playing some clubs, more often in universities, and sometimes doing workshops with their choirs before an evening concert, while at the same time, the record is really not selling that well. Do you remember feeling one way or the other about the lack of success for what you knew was super incredibly strong work? Did it stop you in your tracks at all, or did you think, to heck with it, we'll hit it the next time out?
Sandy?
Well, I don't remember being concerned about not making the big time kind of thing, especially not at first, because Kites was being played on the radio and it was exciting times at that time. I think Chris's song, 2002, is it called?
Yeah.
I think that tongue-in-cheek song says it for me.
It's tongue-in-cheek, but I sense some anger. It's a couple of things. The sped-up voices seem to mock the audience, and the string stabs seem taunting to me. That's what I pick up in there. And then the final, hysterical notion about that song, and we'll get to it, is that it's as catchy, if not catchier, than anything that was on the radio at that time. And of course, you had to. If you're going to mock people, you had to make sure that you were better than everyone else when you were doing it, which is what you did. And then the single, Close Your Mouth, It's Christmas, and Christmas is the Day. So the B-side is one of the great art songs that, every art song that you do is a masterpiece. Your dad had written this song and originally, I believe, released in 1958 with the Anita Kerr Singers.
Right.
Just beautiful. In a forlorn sounding Christmas tradition of, Vince Guaraldi's Christmas Time is Here Again. All the best Christmas music is sad Christmas music, or at least wistful. Maybe we can agree on that. The B-side's fantastic. And the A-side, Close Your Mouth, It's Christmas. First of all, I love that title. One of my favorite Free Design lines ever is get to know the people in your house. You might like them.
Yeah, that's such a good line.
I love the idea of you might like them. Not you will like them, but it's possible. This should be a standard as far as I'm concerned.
I actually think Christmas is the Day. It should be up there with White Christmas in popularity. It's like a golden standard. And I wish people knew about that song and played it.
It really is. All right. So now Ellen is a part of things. 1968's You Could Be Born Again, the second commercial release by the band. So how did you wind up getting involved? Were you asked to be involved, or did you shoulder your way into the group?
No, I was asked. And of course, I said yes immediately.
Talk about sudden. You had just graduated from high school, and the next month you were down in New York City.
Not only that, I don't remember having seen the back of the record. They put you right at the front, like you're the star now. That's awesome. It's like,
Here she is.
It's like Ellen Dedrick featuring the Free Design.
God, scraggly hair and all.
All right, so I got to ask. So, the first record, you're sitting around that living room table in a kumbaya circle writing material together. From this album forward, Chris did most of the writing. Did that cause any friction? That obviously the balance had shifted. Was there any feeling about that or no feeling whatsoever?
Well,
grateful.
Yeah, it was all in the right place. He was the genius. You said it yourself. I mean, he's a musical genius,
He was a genius. He wasn't the genius. Let's get the word right. He was definitely a genius. Without any one of you, and we'll definitely visit this come 1971. You take Ringo out of the Beatles, there's no Beatles. So I'm just curious because the vibe, not that it got worse. You guys, as far as this streak going through the entire 60s is remarkable. It's faultless, unblemished. I can point to almost no other band that had as perfect a run. But I'm just curious if, I know my sister and I love each other and we get into fights all the time. And I'm curious if the redressing of the balance caused any friction within, and it doesn't diminish your love for Chris, but did that sibling rivalry thing, did it come into play now that by LP number 2, he rises to the front of the deck in terms of writing?
Speaking for myself, I was distracted at the time. I was heavily pregnant for Born Again and Heaven Earth albums and had children. And my focus was on babies and also writing children's songs more than anything. So I, for one, didn't feel a competition about writing, why can't I write more songs here? That was my feeling at the time.
And Ellen's new in the group, so she's not feeling any kind of vibe. How you doing, Bruce?
I don't think I developed as a songwriter until later on. I think I've written a few good songs, but at the time, I pretty much deferred to Chris because I recognized where the talent was, and I was happy to, be a part of it. Singing and rehearsing and playing at that time. I was good with that.
Yeah. This is a great album. Right out of the gate with the title track, right from the first line where I'm beginning to get a new kind of feeling, beginning to get a new kind of song. And on that last word, all the colors of the rainbow spill out of your opening descending harmonies. It's almost too much to bear. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I love it.
You all get chills down your spine when you hear that tumble happening.
Yeah, I love that.
It's just crazy. And only siblings get that. So what is the exact slant of the lyrics here? Because Born Again, I know, or I don't think you're super religious, but you're all, to one extent or another, seekers. And that develops later on. But is this about becoming the person you truly were meant to be? Or is there some kind of religious intimation?
Well, I think you'd have to ask Chris that question to get an in-depth answer about it. I mean, people have asked me, is this a born again kind of religious thing? And not to my knowledge, anyway.
No.
Ellen?
No, I don't think it's religious. I think that we all have deeper questions about life and how that went on for the rest of our lives. But that one is like to be born again, now. I mean, for me, it was just like everything can change like that. And you don't have to, fritz around. And far from going to church, we were glad when we finally got out of the choir, and didn't have to go anymore. I wish Chris was here too, but I think it was like the beginning of his exploration into, a little bit more about who and what we are and how we came to be here.
That's true. That's true. Chris one time said that Jason, as like a 5-year-old, came into his bedroom and said, "Let's talk about God." And I've never forgotten that. I thought it was so sweet. And yeah, there is an underlying searching happening in these songs, and depth.
It might have had something to do with the fact that we're born again as a group with Ellen added.
I always did kind of feel that was part of the case for it. But then also there's that minor key dissonance in the chorus begin to live again, where there's that wistfulness about who we were before we were born again now. And there's that interesting thing that kind of portends to the directions that Chris took in the 1970s, where he became much more of a, at least from what I know, front and center seeker, instead of it being an intimation. I've obviously been swimming around in the subtext a little too much.
And this happens in literature and music and everything. Sometimes we make more of something that might have been a little simpler. There are cases of this in his writing. He even said to me a couple of times, people ask him about certain things, maybe Daniel Dolphin or maybe even kites. And he said it wasn't that deep. It was something that, there was no under meaning to it. So sometimes we make more out of it. And we do this with, you watch these musicologists and, I studied music in college and everything, and they go into Mozart and, this is what he was, and sometimes, Mozart was a young man. Maybe he just wrote that because he thought, boy, that sounds good.
But also I know as an artist, because I've made feature films before and written so many things, that a lot of the times, because I'm using art as a vessel, I'm communicating things I'm not aware of. And so people might be able to pick up on things that I don't know about. So I'm not saying by any means that because I've been listening to you guys nonstop that I know more about it. But when there's dissonance and then resolution, there's no accident that it creates certain emotional components in the song. There may not be a conscious reason for them, but they're not there by accident. Because you look at bands from that time, even The Association, who I love so much, but other bands like them who didn't have the complexity of the arrangements. I mean, your vocals were notated. There's like no accidents here. So, it's like a dagger in the heart that Chris isn't here to explain it, but yet at the same time, it may be good that your work can remain a cipher and a mystery as well. And leading to that, one of my all-time favorites, which was a last-minute addition, I believe, is A Leaf Has Veins. And it's one of my favorite songs of all time. In fact, a friend of mine who hadn't heard your band, I said, okay, put on A Leaf Has Veins right now. And the spooky thing that you do, which you bust out once in a while, A Leaf Has Veins, Ivy on a Windy Day, that sort of creepy free design thing that you have, that you sometimes let filter in. I love that part of what you do. And then the lyrics, and it's that funny thing of being just almost like, I like flying kites. It's so funny, you have to laugh. A bunch of words, a good excuse to write some music. And that's like half the lyrics of the entire song. And yet it's one of my favorite songs of all time. Was this created right before and you kind of it was tossed off and you went in and did it?
I remember that one because I know that we had to have X number of songs on an album. And that one, we really didn't get to rehearse much because I think Chris wrote it because I was often copying for him, music copying some of these things. And so I just remember it was not the night before, but, maybe a day or two before that he wrote that because we needed one more piece to complete the length of the album. That's my remembrance of it.
Yeah. And with Ivy on a Windy Day, that one, again, I think we needed another song. And so he put two together, basically, the one about the church and the ivy in the church. And the one that I wrote, Windy Day, was about the birth of Jay, my son. On a soft October day, he was born in October. So Chris just put these two very contrasting songs together.
It's like you're a day in the life.
Sort of like that, yeah.
It really is. That's one of my favorite songs you've ever done. And your section, Sandy, it actually has elements. To me, it sounds like it could be a Stereolab song. And Stereolab are huge proponents of your music.
Yeah, true. I hadn't thought that. Oh, yeah.
There's aspects where, I can imagine Laetitia Sadier actually singing that. But yeah, those two songs have always been two of my favorites. And then Quartet number 6 in D minor. Here's where you start to wander into musique concrète territory. I mean, there's this wild drifting chorus that loses itself in clouds of reverb. And then there's a fake ending halfway through and lyrics that at least sound to me like a pot smoking fantasia. Maybe it's not, maybe it is. I don't really care. I mean, a perfect day for us to use since human group themselves in twos. We're dancing, laughing, feeling fine, a wild and wailing state of mind. I don't care if it's a drug song or not. I really don't. But this is at least where you get weird, and you do weird really convincingly. You would think a group that had its feet at least vaguely planted in children's music, it would sound maybe kitschy when you get into the psychedelic territory, but it never does for me, for you guys. You do weird very convincingly. Was Chris weird?
I guess we're all weird at some point or other.
And then I like The Sunrise. For anyone out there who's listening who has not heard this song, I never tell people to stop the podcast and go somewhere else for fear of losing them as an audience member. But stop right now and go listen to it. And if you're unaffected by it, I would check yourself into a mental institution, because obviously your heart and soul are disconnected and they need repairing immediately. It's one of the most perfect, simple, elegant, most awe-inspiringly emotional experiences I've ever had. Better than the original. I don't care who did it first, even though it was Duke Ellington. The dissonance and resolve on the chorus, it kills me every single time, especially on "It Brings New Hope," they say. Just saying those words, I literally just got chills. It's insane. It's one of the most perfect pieces of music of all time. To me, it's your absolute best cover you've ever done, notwithstanding if you're going to count your Dad's Little Cowboy. And it's in my, I don't have a list of my favorite songs of all time, but it's up there in the top 30.
Well, it's one of my favorites of all of our albums, frankly. You used the word elegant, and I think that's a perfect word for that song. Just beautiful.
From the piano tinkling in the beginning, again, I don't have synesthesia, but I see the sun poking up just over the horizon with the piano tinkling. And then your voices, it's like when the sun is full on beaming. Again, like nailing that mood. You have your umbrella song, your sun song, your bubble song, your kite song, and you nail the mood and move on. It's a really astounding piece of work. Same with I Found Love. Again, gorgeously simple, just like I Like the Sunrise. I think it's one of your great triumphs as a group. It never gets old for me. Again, before I met my wife, I would listen to this song and dream about what it would be like to meet my true love. Again, with the dissonance and resolution in the chorus, perfectly encapsulating pre-love life chaos and then the deep breath of union when it comes together. It's amazing.
I always thought that song should have been a hit, actually.
Yeah, it's a wonderful song.
There should have been a lot of songs that were huge hits by you guys. It's only a trick of fate or just a toss of the coin that the Michelle Phillips interview, that they had all these hits and you guys had Kites Are Fun. I could point to 25, 30 songs that you guys did that could have been enormous monsters and still could potentially, to this day. Daniel Dolphin, I'm surprised actually, Bruce, that this is one that you single out as one that Chris would be approached by about the meaning of, because this one just feels like one of your simpler, more straight up songs, as good as anything else. But why do you think Chris was approached about this one? Or did you just grab this one randomly?
I think there was a lot of people who thought there was something really deep. It's like Puff the Magic Dragon. Everybody thought it was a drug song. People who heard this song, and Chris even said, they thought there was something really deep and foreboding about this song. And he said he didn't think it was that deep. I don't know where he came up with this idea, but it wasn't as deep and foreboding as a lot of people thought it was.
It's interesting. I'm reading everything into your songs, and this is one where I thought it was just a song about a dolphin.
Well, you agree with Chris then?
I do, yeah. It seems like this would be one that Sandy would teach her elementary school kids.
Yeah.
And the more I actually look at this record, the more it seems like, maybe not intentionally, but it does seem like a concept album, because You Could Be Born Again starts it. And then by the end, it's a song about death. So we have the birth and death, and I'm guessing it was sequenced that way on purpose. An Elegy is a really powerful song about your cousin Dwight, who you called Pete, who was unfortunately killed in Vietnam. And your dad was so moved during its recording that he had to leave the control room in tears, from what I read.
I didn't get along with my mother very well. And as a senior in high school, I lived at Uncle Ward's and worked on the farm and lived in the same room as Pete. We were like brothers for that year. And the cows come home and I get all emotional when I hear that song.
And Ella, that is you on lead, right?
Yes. Yes.
And you sound angry.
Well, yeah.
I'm saying contextually, when you have a song like Daniel Dolphin, then all of a sudden, here's you spitefully singing over music concrete. Like I said earlier, it really slaps you across the face.
How we got.
Last song.
Yeah. I mean, and it's true because, war is worthless. There will never be peace that comes from war. That it's an oxymoron. And Chris, when he wrote that, I know that's exactly, it was just such a waste, and all of those lines, describe Pete, and also kind of like seeing him, hands that dribbled a basketball, voice that sang out of tune. That was Pete for sure. Love that ended too soon. Like all of these juxtaposition of, what could have been.
We all played basketball together, and Pete was famous for not being a great singer. Love that ended too soon. He had this wonderful girlfriend. Chris captured all that, and Alan captured that in her vocals. And, we miss Pete to this day.
Yeah, the whole family does.
All right, here's my mini review of You Could Be Born Again. You Could Be Born Again is a stunning record. Again, another masterpiece from the Free Design. And I count 9 or so of the 12 songs as up there with the greatest material that the Free Design has ever released. There's also a sophistication here that comes to the fore in a bolder manner. The songwriting's become more experimental, and there are stabs at more outre material that completely and totally work. This is a total masterpiece. My only wish is that there were more originals. There's a couple of songs on the first side, like, when I hear California Dreamin', I wish that was replaced, honestly, with an original. When you do something like Eleanor Rigby, where the arrangement elevates it beyond its source material, that's a whole other thing. Plus, I'm thinking that at this point, Bruce and Sandy, at least, had to have had at least a couple songs in your back pockets that easily could have taken the place of, maybe Happy Together or California Dreamin'. Those are the two mainly, but it doesn't even matter. That's splitting hairs. I give it 5 stars. I love this record.
Thank you, David.
Sandy, I'm looking at you. I've discounted these two as Bruce is absolutely no way. Ellen is going cosmic on me, and Sandy's got star ratings.
No, I think aside from the fact that Kites Are Fun was the first album and rated really high because that was our initial effort. Of the rest of the music, this album was my favorite.
Oh, cool. Okay, I didn't know that.
I mean, I love all the other stuff too, but I think that if I had to pick one, this would be the one.
How about you, Sandy?
I rate it high. I mean, when I rated the albums, I liked the children's album the best for a lot of reasons, but this one second best, really.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I love the songs on it.
Ellen, a Galaxy?
Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, it was the first album formally to sing on, so that was exciting. I don't look at music kind of that way of rating it, so I mean, I love it.
I'm a schmuck. You have to excuse me.
No, I'm not putting you down. I'm not that way, but I do love this album very much.
Sounds like a 5 to me. All right, Again, like I said, I'm a schmuck. Hi, I'm Dave Gebrow. I threw my career as a licensed hearing instrument specialist in the trash, sold my house, and moved to the East Coast with my wife and 4-year-old son in order to focus on making the ultimate podcast for music obsessives thrive. Now I need your help. Although Discograffiti is rated in the top 2% of all podcasts globally, the economics of this thing are tricky. Becoming a member of Discograffiti's Patreon gives you access to over 100 more exclusive episodes. And moving forward now every Sunday for only $5 a month as a private first class, you get our new weekly show by and for Discograffiti's Patreon family, the Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound podcast. As a lieutenant, you get an ad-free, substantially elongated director's cut of every episode. And you'll be getting the shows a few days earlier than the general populace, which is designed to make you feel even more special than you already are. So when you become a major, you'll be getting access to the ultimate director's cuts of all our sprawling, super deep dive episodes. As far as I'm concerned, these super cuts have absolutely everything that was meant to be heard. Plus, you get yours before the lieutenants get theirs. But that ain't it. You also get all our other series, like Discograffiti's Top 10, our Buried Treasure show, Rock Cousteau, our Slag Off show, Queasy Listening, and exclusive limited series like The Private Press with Paul Major. And if you've got no financial worries to speak of, keep in mind that some of the higher Patreon tiers allow you to actually advertise on the show, choose the bands we cover, or even some of the guests gifts we get. For the price of a cup of coffee a week, you can ensure my family's fed, build a music library that'll be the envy of your block, and connect to a thriving community of music maniacs all at the same time. Don't risk feeling badly about yourself by not giving. Patreon.com/Discograffiti. Once again, that's patreon.com/Discograffiti. 1969, Heaven Earth, which kicks off with one of my favorite songs by the band, My Very Own Angel, which is, I believe, about Chris's wife, Kathy, wife at the time. Actually, like I said before, I'm a filmmaker, and one of the scripts, or actually the main script that I've been trying to get made for a very long time, it's got this song written into it. I love this song. I love the descending flute pattern. I think it's a flute. The song is so gentle, so beautiful, and one of the best examples, if not the best example, of the beautiful music that you weren't afraid to produce. It was like, had such a gentle femininity about it. This is a gorgeous song. Any memories about creating this one? Or
It's one of my favorite songs, too. I think I'm a romantic, and I liked the idea of it. And you're right, it's sweet and beautiful.
Okay, so for the second track, Now Is the Time, I got to ask you, Sandy, was it weird to sing a song of carnal desire that your brother had written?
It didn't seem weird to me.
And then what's up with the line, it's the now time to brother me?
You're bringing up lyrics I've forgotten. It's now time to brother.
With good reason, because I never really listened to the lyrics. And then with each song, I was careful to look at all of them. And I was like, that's interesting. If I Were a Carpenter is one of the first tunes that the group ever performed, right? This is going back to Village Fair days.
I don't think so.
I don't remember that, and I don't like the song particularly. Really?
Oh, okay. To me, this is one of those where it transcends the original. It's in my top 5 of your cover songs, and it's my favorite ever version of this song. And this song's been done like 1 billion times. You've made it your own. The vocal arrangement and the nylon stringed warmth of the interstitial guitar figures, those are the most prominent reasons as to why it works so incredibly well for me. But this is one where the 4 of you and Chris's arrangement, you stole it from Tim Hardin for me.
Well, Tim Hardin, of course, it was the simplicity of his version. I remember doing this on TV, and we did it live. It wasn't lip sunk. And we did it in concerts too, because the guitar stuff we were able to do. So I agree with what you said about taking it beyond Tim Hardin's version.
There's so many versions, and yours has a haunting quality to it. It's really haunting. The way that you're singing, the vibe of your voices together, it takes it into a whole other place for me. Of course, I'll never hear it the same way again, knowing that Sandy hates it.
I didn't say hate. I didn't use the word hate.
I'm kidding. I'm just trying to provoke a reaction.
You got it.
Ellen, do you like this one?
I like it. I love the harmonies, and it's funny because I forgot about it, But now that you mention it, I like the little guitar line, da, 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 and it does make it our own version.
And then at the end, there's a break in the time signature where the guitar figure goes, da, da, and the bass does a descending thing right before it ends. That is just so pretty. It is so beautifully arranged. You Be You and I'll Be Me is a fantastic little bid for tolerance and independence. That's a real groover that has a quicker quality to it that contrasts really well, I think, with Carpenter. But then a really interesting one, Girls Alone. Let's talk about this one, because this is one that was a grower for me. It wasn't one that initially leaped out, but it's very dark. There's a darkness to this. Actually, Fern had recommended this song to somebody who was just discovering the free design on Facebook. And I saw the post yesterday. And the guy wrote, wow, thank you for this one. And Fern wrote, it's really dark if you listen to the lyrics. And I responded, yeah, this song directly led to the creation of the rape whistle. Because it's about female fears, like really primal female fears that men don't even think about. That's what it seems to be addressing, the lyrical content, and especially the way that the music is presented. Sandy and Ellen, it's the 2 of you singing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Chris and I didn't sing on this one.
Yeah, this is a strong song. So I'm just curious if you remember the derivation of this, especially because at that time, I don't remember there being any material like this at all from any band.
I don't know about the derivation. I had no conversation with Chris about it. I love the song. I often imagined, I mean, it's so out there in a way. It could be the backdrop for a horror movie almost, but with a sweetness as well. I mean, it's that tension between every day. Yeah, you're walking along, but oh my God, there's this over here. Better watch out, you know? It's a gripping song.
Truly is. I mean, musically, it puts you, because I'm not female, I don't, I certainly have fears, but the musicality of it puts you in the mind frame and allows you to empathize and connect with the lyrics as a man. That's how I feel about it. Sometimes your music is so overwhelming to me that I'm not listening to all the lyrics. So this was one of those where I never actually keyed into the lyrics, but once you know what it's about, it really is a special song.
Yeah, well, I remember, and I'm pretty sure this is the case, and I hope if Kathy listens to that, she agrees, but his wife, Kathy, was maybe not as fearful, about things as this song, but it really refers to, some of the things that she was afraid of things. And I think he wrote that just in reflection, of thinking about, what it would be like if you were, afraid. And then the beauty of the music, as you said, is it's talking about things that could be a horror movie, but there is a gentleness about it, an understanding of it that I find, it was quite beautiful to sing.
Yeah, it's a really special piece of work. Again, I can't, especially at that time, I can't point to anything that's like this. And then, of course, it's all about contrast with you guys. 2002, a hit song, couldn't take the feeling in a further out direction than Girls Alone. What a great song. There weren't a lot of snide songs about, this is a snide song. So was there any vibe in the band? You're on your third album now. What was the feeling about the lack of feedback from this great work that you were putting out there? What were your feelings?
Well, just to start off quickly, what I think Chris was talking about is that, everybody was saying you have to have a hit. That's why, we ended up doing some of the cover songs we did because Enoch felt, you got to put something on there that people recognize, you can't just do all your own material. And by the third album, it's like, well, are you ever going to have a hit, kind of thing. So I think he wrote it just to, push back. And it was fun to sing that, too.
I never thought of it that way, but I can see that now.
Was Enoch, was he on your case about, you got to have a hit on this one?
No, he was partly at fault that we didn't have hits.
At that time, it started to be, when you got into the 70s, all this big, you've got a hit. And it wasn't as esoteric as it was in the 60s where people listened to whole albums and they loved something unique. And so if you didn't start to have a big selling record in the 70s, I think that's when it started to be the downfall of the whole music industry. You've got to have a hit.
Sure, you can say that. But, I abandoned my career as a hearing instrument specialist in order to have a show where I'm talking about music, and the doing of it is the reward. But if there's a day where the numbers of the show dip, I can't help but think I did something wrong. And the outward validation is an indication that you're doing something right sometimes. And we're all human and we're not above that. So unless you're dissociated somehow and you figured out some kind of trick to trick yourself into thinking that it just doesn't matter, it would seem like you'd have to be some guru type to truly not care at some level. Were you resigned at this point to a fate of hitlessness and you didn't care? Or what was the story? Tell me.
The fate of hitlessness. That's a new phrase. Oh my God.
Because albums are packed with hits that weren't hits.
Exactly. You know what? I'm going to sound like a snob here. I never felt like our material was not hit material. I thought a lot of it was hit material. And I just felt like people didn't appreciate it. I don't know why, but that's how I felt about it at the time. And maybe Chris, too, as he pushed back, maybe that's what he was feeling too.
Yeah, well, Chris resisted the idea of commerciality to a certain degree. And there were other groups like we were contemporary with the Fifth Dimension.
You were so much better than them.
Yeah, but they were more commercial.
Because they didn't have the dissonance.
For what it's worth, maybe that's why they were more popular than we were.
Oh, they could dance better than we could too, though.
Absolutely. And then
They look good on stage. Come on.
I saw them live and they put on a great concert. Their recordings were backed up by full band and everything, but when they did their live show, they had like a drummer and a guitar player, maybe a bass player, because their vocals were the show. So, and it was simple stuff, great stuff.
But you're growing up with the oversized shoe hand-me-downs, and your dad came from even a more extreme, growing up without electricity, and there was no element of, we hope that this pays off. There had to have been one of you that was hoping. Which one of you was hoping for a hit the most out of the four of you?
If I were to guess, I would say we all wish that one of those songs would have been a hit. And I think the least concerned about that was Chris. I'm just guessing that. Because, he, musical genius that he was, he got so much satisfaction out of us producing his music. He got a lot out of that without getting a hit record, And I think we got a lot out of it, too.
But when you look back on it, we could all died drug addicts if we, who knows what would have happened. And maybe it didn't happen for the very reason, you're speaking of Bruce and Sandy, that we really did feel totally privileged and graced to have had that, opportunity to make that music and to, be with the musicians. And that unto itself was more the purpose, at least maybe I'm just saying this, but there was, for me, maybe because I was so young and stupid, I would have been nice to have the money now, the royalties now. But back then it was just so fulfilling, unbelievably fulfilling.
And then last song, Dorian Benediction. Great, great song. I think the best song on the second side. And the only one on the record, to the best of my knowledge, for which Chris didn't write the arrangement and the instrumentation was just improvised. Although I never have known. This song really underscores to me the boundless extent of Chris's talent to harness magic from your group. This was the second take, and Chris wrote vocal parts to fit the mood of the music. And again, it's that spooky psychedelic thing that you only sometimes did, but whenever you did it, it was so moving, like Ivy on a Windy Day and A Leaf Has Veins. And it's these great, great masked vocals, almost Gregorian chant-like. Here's my tiny little review. It seems like Chris is stretching out here. I sense he's getting restless and wanting to explore the outer reaches of your possibilities as a recording unit, and the results are pretty staggering. The experimentation always works, and the originals especially are just a soft punch to the heart. I give it an unsurprising 5 stars. I'm looking at you, Sandy.
Galaxies. I like that word, Ellen. Thank you.
So then comes a record that I had no idea of until doing research for this epic interview, which is the 1969 Enoch Light and the Light Brigade album, Spaced Out, which is a more psychedelically tinged revamp of the Tony Mottola Easy Listening LP formula. More sitar heavy, like a more hash den redux of what Tony Mottola's album was trying to do, I think. It's worth seeking out, and it's on YouTube, and it's streaming. I'll give it 4.25 stars, which is what I gave the Tony Mottola record. Now we stumble upon the 70s, which you guys had in a vice-like grip, as far as I'm concerned. Stars Time, Bubbles Love. I'm just going to preempt talking about this record by saying this is just a masterpiece, and I love that cover art. And I love the trippy inside cover, especially knowing you guys had no use for drugs whatsoever.
That's how this interview contrasts with Michelle Phillips, just about the drug use. We didn't even know from drugs, I didn't even do marijuana until much later. And I did a few tokes on that, and that didn't do much for me. So I didn't do that anymore.
Regardless, your music, especially this record, a couple others like it, that really send me to a whole lot of places. Drugs not needed. I mean, the journey is in the music. And this is a real kind of turning point that never was, in a way. Because I feel like there was an evolution that started to happen here and then was curtailed. All right, that about does it. Stay tuned, because next week is part 3 of our free design interview. This Monday, the ultimate cut rolls out for our Patreon's major tier. It's the show as it was truly intended to be heard, ad-free, and with all the essentials left intact. And then on Wednesday, the lieutenants get their slightly shorter edit. And then on Friday, the rest of you penny pinchers get to join in on the action. A heartfelt Discograffiti thanks goes out to my beautiful wife and son, Jen and Mason, Sandy, Ellen, and Bruce Dedrick, Fernando Perdomo, Rudy Fishman, Becky Boyd, my incredibly loyal fans, and especially the entire Patreon community, the Soldiers of Sound. I love every last one of you, and this show would not exist without you, my friends. Speaking of friends, it's high time for some new ones. They're in our Facebook group, Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound. That's the best way to find out what's coming up on the show, but there's a hell of a lot more. You get recaps of the day in music history, the ability to pitch questions to guests, polls that put you in the driver's seat on guest and band decisions, and access to a thriving creative hub if you're looking for a collaborator. So make sure you don't miss out. You can find the link to the Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound Facebook page right there in the show notes. And if you don't mess with the Zuck, no sweat. Just email me at info@discograffiti.com and I'll keep you in the loop. So now that it's done and you want more, another way to dive even deeper into the greatest music ever made from the 1960s is to leap headfirst into my 12-hour interview with Jules Alexander and Terry Kirkman, the two founding members of Monterey Pop opening act The Association. That's episodes 110 to 113. Vashti Bunyan rating her entire catalog. That's 103 and 104. Os Mutants Sergio Diaz on the early days of the band, that's 86 and 87. Burt Summer, 83 and 84. A tribute to David Crosby, that's 77 and 78. Lou Barlow rates the Zombies, that's 59 and 60. Bob Forrest on the band, that's 25 and 27. Monkees manager Andrew Sandoval rating the Monkees, that's 22 and 23. The Bee Gees Psychedelic Beginnings, that's episode 10. And Sly and the Family Stone, episodes 5, 6, and 7. Join us during the upcoming week. This Sunday, you can expect another deliriously sociopathic entry of Rudy Fishman's Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound podcast. These are real people with talent and a burning fire deep inside, just like you and I. Get to know your new music-obsessed friends. And of course, be sure to mark your calendars, because next Friday, July 5th, we're coming at you with part 3 of Sandy, Bruce, and Ellen Dedrick from the Free Design. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss it. And so, from now till then, don't let our youth go to waste, lads and ladies. It's Discograffiti!